You say Dad.AI.
Dad.AI. This is Dad.AI.
Now say it really clearly. This is Dad.AI.
I can't do that.
Try it.
This is Dad.AI.
Yeah, it is.
Dad.AI.
Welcome to Dad.AI, the #1 podcast at the intersection of tech and parenting. All right, Jakey boy. Last week was episode 1, or as those of us in tech call it, our proof of concept. What are some of the things we want to improve upon for Dad.AI moving forward?
I love that my phone was blowing up, that people are listening to it, saying that we're onto something, that there is a gap at this intersection, and just like hungry to see more. I have a friend I was talking to yesterday. He was annoyed about his kid playing video games. He loved the kind of gamer product management, kind of building your own video games concept that we shared, and he's now pushing his kids on that. So I feel like feedback, I want to hear your thoughts, was good. And then I think the other side of this was just like the tech stack was cool. Like for two jamokes who have never done any AV work in our lives to actually look like we know how to produce a podcast, and doing that solely through AI tools. And, I think it's probably worth its own post and a deep dive on the stack that we're using, but good feedback on both content and production. So I'm pretty happy. How about you?
People were bopping to our summer anthem, the Dad.AI.
This is Dad.
Look, I think one piece of feedback that I had was less script, more fun, right? I think both of us a little bit rigid, a little bit stiff on the last one. So we're going to have a lot more fun moving forward. The second piece was, look, we're trying to figure out how to navigate and work with our community more. We're both partner people. And so for us, it's how to engage with folks, how to maybe spice things up with maybe some swag drops, figure out how to work with our community better. We're super grateful for all the support and feedback that we've received so far. A little bit of mixed feedback from you, Pops. I don't know about I know your mom had similar feedback, less tech jargon, more proactive insight. What'd your mom say?
Yeah, I love that. Our #1 fans are also our #1 critics. So we'll put funny. We both got texts from our parents that were generally nice, but with a backhanded comment included. My mom's ended with, I liked the first half more. Second half went in other topics and seemed a little talky. So Brian, if you want Yaya Sonia, she's called to stay on and retain as a listener, less talky.
We're going to try to impress her on this one. So we're going to be iterative. We're going to improve upon it, this one.
I'm glad that we decided to change our shirts when we turned up today in the exact same shirts. I think that's progress here. We're creating our own identities. The other thing that my mom did like that I think is worth mentioning is, and I think a couple of folks have mentioned, the whole AI and education component to all this that I know you and I spent a lot of time talking about, and I think is probably worth us continuing to dedicate time today and going forward. And so I'm gonna use that as a segue into our community spotlight for today. Today's community spotlight, we're highlighting a post from Dad.AI community member Alex Banks. And I just this one hit me hard. It really got me thinking about the future here. I'll let you read as I talk through it. But one of the things that really struck me was kind of how he painted the future. Imagine having a tutor available 24/7, perfect patience and understanding, personalized learning paths, interactive visual explanations. And I love this part, the ability to ask why endlessly. He ended by saying, human teachers will have a place and will remain have a critical place in providing what machines cannot do, which is emotional support, real world guidance, emotional intelligence. But I do think that the fusing of the two is going to become is really going to upend education. And I'm just a believer in like generative ed, the idea that like a textbook that was written 5 years ago for every single student is probably not the optimal way to learn. And the idea that a kid can customize their curriculum, have entire courses generated from scratch. And in the video, we'll show some clips of it that was included in the post. Like it asked her what she likes, and she said octopuses, which is a weird answer. But then it like tailored this like lesson in fractions around octopuses, which is just like, you're not going to have that in a static textbook. What did you think about this post?
I mean, my favorite was when Theo was like, I hate homework. I hate test taking. Me too. I couldn't agree more. And look, in our generation, like we used to comment on not every kid learns the same way. Yet we all had to take the same tests, had to do the same curriculum. And so I like the pick your own journey as it pertains to education. I think it's a lot more fun and a way to spice things up.
100%. And that actually, I think, is a good segue into our second section of today, which is the Dad.AI Newswire. So, Brian, what is the first article that we're highlighting today?
Speaking of spicy, look, you're going to get some advocates, you're going to get some doubters on this one, but I actually think that this is a good follow-up from the last one about, Trump's announcement with kids K through 12. And so Google Gemini is actually going to release a version of Gemini for kids under the age of 13. Now that has to be using the family link for Google users or Google Workspace users. And I'm sure the anxious generation camp is a little bit skeptical on this one because those are the folks that don't want kids to use technology until the age of 18. Yet I actually think that this is a good way to have your kids dip their toes in the water with AI models, with prompting, and doing it in a responsible way with the watchful eye of your parents. And look, they also called out that Gemini they can't use this information for improvements into the model, which I think that's a good restriction. Again, I understand that there's going to be pros and cons on this entire release.
Yeah, it's hard. I know I'm supposed to always take the bull case and the technology on any of these, but man, 13 years old feels incredibly uncomfortably young. All right, but I will build my case here. The obvious first reason why this is a good release is that even if you don't agree with 13, like a tailored solution for 13-year-olds and under, it's definitely better than someone using a tool like Gemini without the guardrails that would come with that and without the controls. And again, like you said, model retraining data going back in, if we accept that this is going to happen, at least in some cases, obviously parents' discretion, it's better that it's done in a governed way with those guardrails than that it's just done through the traditional system that's meant to, serve all humans and have some of the companionship components and all that. I have to imagine that this trend is important enough, that AI is real enough and here enough that not letting a kid experience until they're 13 could leave them out of the system, could have negative impacts.
For sure.
The idea that you turn 13 and you then begin developing AI literacy it is kind of important, especially if it's going to be core to our society. But I mean, the bare case is that it's young and this. I know Sam Altman was with the Senate this week, and he said he doesn't want his son's best friend to be an AI, which I
agree with. Without a doubt, I couldn't agree more. But if you're going to compare it, like 13-year-olds in the States, and they're going to be dropped off into the middle of the ocean using their first AI tool at 13, when kids abroad are using it at the age of 6, we're going to be behind. And so I'm not saying these kids should go wild, but with the guardrails in place, I think it's a good thing that we're starting to move that conversation forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think the risk here was something I thought you highlighted something really good last week, which is that these tools kind of by definition are meant to be engaging and drive repeat usage. And yes, there'll be guardrails, but they'll still be meant to get people to come back to them and to keep people using them. And so there is just obviously a really fine line to walk here. But the point you just made around the geopolitical component of all of this and the competitive nature, I think, is why I'm personally glad that this exists. Next up, this is one that I could spend an hour on, but we'll try to keep it to a couple minutes. But an article came out in Yahoo this week that parents feel clueless about career advice as kids eye AI and social media jobs. And this is one that, I think about probably more often than I should. It makes me a helicopter parent around Eden is 4, Jonah's 10 months, graduating into the workforce in the next 10 to 20 years. What can I be doing as a dad to help my kids be as kind of AI insulated as possible. And like the thing I disagree with in this, at least in the headline and kind of the nature of the post is like, they're like, how can I help my kids get AI jobs? That's probably like the wrong perspective on it. And I talk to a lot of people, mid-career people that also say the same thing. Like, and the answer is probably like, how can I solve problems where AI is a tech enabler of that perhaps? But, when I think about like, what do I want? What can I do for Eden to give her a life of prosperity in this weird paradigm where no one knows what the next 5 years will look like once AGI is achieved, or the next 15 years once, super intelligence is achieved. The thing that I think about and that Laura and I talk about all the time is it's like, what are the most human things that we can do? And so one of the things that we're doing a lot of is we're trying to teach Eden entrepreneurship, because I think that is like, whether it's starting your own company or not, that is a skill that is like a blend of a lot of things that make you human. And so right now we are incubating Coldwater Canyon Park Jewelers within our house, which is a jewelry company that we're trying to get Eden to start. She likes like making jewelry. And so we want to actually have her continue to do this and eventually start to sell it, eventually build an e-commerce store around it, and really show her how to like take something from idea to product and build something around it. So entrepreneurship is like my general answer on that. What do you think about it?
I'm a subscriber. Where do I buy this jewelry?
Well, I guess it'll be at coldwatercanyonparkjewelers.com unless that URL is taken.
Ooh, all right. I think it's interesting because if you think about our parents, I remember when I started working at Amazon Web Services, and my parents thought I could control their deliveries for Amazon, right? And the same thing goes with Google Cloud. I remember when I first started there, my mom was like, "Oh, you work for the search company." So our parents didn't know a single thing about cloud. And you're going to look at, I have plenty of friends that are just like dumbfounded by some of the AI use cases that we're talking about. They're blown away by even just the song that we created for Dad.AI. So yeah, you're going to come up with a generation that there's going to be a disconnect, and that AI literacy is super important. And that's the purpose of this and plenty of other communities out there that are trying to empower parents to get ahead of the curve with respects to how you raise a competent and responsible child down the road.
100%. And there's probably no right answer here and no wrong answer here. But
I just relate to it being clueless. Right? I consider myself pretty naive, and yeah, but that's why I like scratching this itch every week with you, learning about new stuff, learning about new ways to make myself a better member of society.
All right. So let's move on to the last section this week, Dad Hack of the Week. This is one that I think in our first conversation about starting this pod, this was like one of your inspirations for wanting to be here in the first place, was how blown your mind was around like a very specific part of your dad life that you are both passionate about and have infused AI in. So take this away, Dad Hack of the Week.
I think anyone that knows me knows I'm not a handyman, not really good with construction or fixing things, but everyone can watch a good YouTube video. But anyone that also knows me knows that I'm married up, right? I'm definitely punching above my weight with my wife, Sydney. I think you are too with Lauren, if I have to say so myself. But so look, Sydney, I come home from a work trip and she's like, "We're going to build a garden." I was like, "Well, you know nothing about building a garden. What are we talking about?" And again, we have a young daughter. She likes we go to the farmer's market and we pick out stuff. And so we did it more for a pet project for Sloan, our daughter, than anything, than actually growing our own produce. But it started to get a little bit fun. And so I come home from my trip, and Sydney's like, "I have the full-blown plan." Went through ChatGPT. I typed in which zone or which region we are, which obviously there's different ecological environments that do better with different sunlight and different water. It gave us, guidance on how the size of the garden beds need to be. It then started to give us advice on companion planting. If you want to grow tomatoes, you should be doing it with marigolds, and so on and so forth. And so it gave us an entire map of how you plant the specific fruits and vegetables next to other things that deter pests or rodents or whatever. And then because due to ChatGPT memory, it's taking into consideration everything that we just planted into the soil. It's giving us advice if we take a screenshot of how things are growing. If you got to use eggshells or coffee grinds or just other stuff beyond just water and soil. And it's setting us reminders and schedules and tasks. And so I think it's one of those use cases that, this would have taken us months, if not a year, to try to figure out how to construct this thing. And now we just have a gardening co-pilot that, like, anytime there's some issue, we're getting real-time feedback and you don't have to, pay money to get an assistant. So we were people that couldn't even take care of a fiddle leaf fig tree.
I love this because it does take so many different features of AI into account and like kind of like it's multimodal, whatever. I imagine like our ancestors like had to like really experiment with trial and error. And like this basically just like, let's like take advantage of all trial and error that has occurred since the history of man and just like, know what the right answer is, or at least like get it down to as few variables as possible. It's funny. This one has come up so many times. A good use case I'll give you. I was talking to a buddy yesterday. He proactively brought this use case up, and his example was he's trying to make his grass greener. Y'all searching for greener grasses, and so he's been experimenting a lot with fertilizers. And I didn't know this until yesterday, but like there are a million different fertilizers, and if you go to like Lowe's, they'll just tell you like use Scott's or something. But it's all based on like the pH balance and a bunch of like chemistry about your lawn that I don't understand. And so basically what he was doing was he was having like one of those like mail-in soil reports. So he's like sending his soil into a place and getting all these levels and insights about it. And then he put that into ChatGPT and said, what fertilizer do I need based on my unique soil composition? And now the grass is truly greener on the other side. It's a great use case.
That's what we're doing with Dad.AI,
Yeah.
right? Finding our greener grass.
Yes. All right, Brian, this was fun. Now, how do we close this?
We're going to be A/B testing a little bit of taglines. So today is heading into the weekend.
You're trying something on me? All right, I'm ready.
Heading into the weekend, hug your kids, hug your spouse with love from Dad.AI.
Dad.AI. This is Dad.AI.